Welcome, welcome everyone, and happy Sunday. Dr. Monica here with a very specific and critical webinar on this Sunday. I am going to be sharing with you much of the research that I have conducted over the last 2 years about grief brain syndrome, unraveling the fog. Grief is, I always want to say, it's not a condition, right? A lot of people try to say that, oh, she's grieving, or oh, he's grieving, as if this is a condition. Grief is a state of being. And what we know now, that we've known for quite some time, is that when we lose a loved one, our brain rewires itself. Many of those new footprints and neural passages that happen during that rewiring process are permanent. Some are not. We also might experience physiological changes in our bodies brought on by grief and the state of being in grief. So I'm going to share with you today simple coping mechanisms on how to push through, make it through, because some days are sunny and beautiful like this Sunday, and some days are just, and you just don't feel like masquerading for anyone. You just don't feel like getting out of the bed, getting off of the couch. So stick with me for the next hour, and I'm going to share with you all what I've learned. And I'm going to recommend that if you don't have your notebooks and your journals, that you grab those now. Grab yourself some water or other refreshment. And as I begin all of my webinars with the deep breathing, it's often the breath that we're going to do now, the box breath, that helps us to get through, okay? So helps us to unravel that fog. So if you would sit up straight, either in your chair or wherever you're sitting on the floor, you want to place your left hand over your heart, because it's the heart that is hurting. So you never want to be afraid to place your hand over your heart and sometimes massage your heart. So place your left hand on your heart and your right hand over your left hand. And what we're going to do is a simple 3 or 4 count breath based on how long you can hold your breath. Sometimes when we're grieving, we just can't catch the breath. So I never like to box anyone in and say, oh, you have to hold it for 3 seconds, inhale. Sometimes you can't hold it at all, right? Or, oh, you have to, this is a box 4 breath. So you inhale for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4. This is a box breath, but it is to be curated to what your body can do today, in this minute, at this time. So place your left hand over your heart, your right hand over your left, and you're going to inhale for 3, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. And at your own pace now, you're going to inhale, hold at the top, and exhale. And again, you want to inhale, Hold at the top. Exhale. And once again, you want to inhale. Hold at the top. And exhale. So as we learn together and journey together through this session today, you might feel emotions come up. You might feel that you have to breathe. That's fine. Breath is important. Breath is life. So I want to welcome Ida. Welcome, Ida. It's good to see you. So I want to share a little bit about myself. Hello, I am Dr. Monica. I am Dr. Monica Bickerstaff Riley. I am originally from New York, but I'm now happily implanted in Las Vegas. I received my BA from Vassar College back on the East Coast, and then my master's in journalism in the Midwest, and then my medical degree in integrative medicine here in the Southwest. So I think I've covered, like, each chapter of my life is pretty much a landmark of kind of where I've flopped. I am a certified anxiety and PTSD trauma healing coach. The first chapter of my life, I worked for 25 years as an executive director and producer with PBS. Um, and I'm proud to say I walked away with 2 Emmy Awards for 2 documentaries that I produced. Currently, I am an adjunct professor at the College of Southern Nevada, where I teach a wonderful Harlem Renaissance composition and literature and English 101 and English 102. I'm the proud founder of Dr. Monica's Natural Beauty, founded that company in 2016, right before I had to pivot, and I will share my brief story with you. I'm a foodie, a wine enthusiast, an artist, and a just a great friend, daughter, um, and I am a grief survivor of 6 years. So in 2017, and starting in the month of April, it's kind of a haul for me between April and July. April 26th is my beloved Nana's birthday. She transitioned on May 31st at the age of 101. Was still one of my besties. We spoke every day. She was still living on her own, very vibrant, had her vitality, had all her mind, no dementia present, no mobility issues. My dad was her caretaker in the family home at the time. So when Nana transitioned, um, she had not been ill, but she decided it was time for her to depart. So when she transitioned, it's different when we have a transitional loss of a loved one, someone who has either we've been a caregiver for, someone in hospice care, maybe someone who has had a long-term chronic illness. Um, it hurts, but we can kind of prepare and anticipate and, for that transitional loss. The traumatic loss came 60 days later on July 9th, 1 week before I was to go to Cleveland for to the family homestead to work with my dad to go through my Nana's accounts and kind of settle her estate. and just work through some of the things with the house with him. My dad was my foundation, and he was my support through everything unconditionally. My dad was my provider, as is my mom. I'm grateful to still have my mom living and my maternal nana living still. But on that July 9th, and it's funny how we can always recall where we are when we get that phone call. Now, this is the difference. This is traumatic loss. When I went to bed on July 8th, I had just packed my suitcase, was waiting for a few days to hop on a plane to travel from Las Vegas to Cleveland. But when I got a call from a neighbor on July 9th, I knew that, you know, you get the call, there's something that happens in your heart that's different from other calls that you get. And the the neighbor said that my dad was not answering the phone. And at that point, I was like, please call the police. You have a set of keys. Please go inside. Um, and so we found out that he had uh, passed. Uh, and it was traumatic. I was not expecting it. He had not been ill. Um, and I lost it. I lost it. And 6 years later, I'm still trying to find it. So, what prompted me to start this research on grief and the state of being in grief is that, you know, a lot of times we can get impatient with ourselves. And I was like, you know, year 4, I was doing a lot better. Year 5, okay, but this year, for whatever reason, I'm starting to have that morning instability. And so it was 2 years ago when I started to understand how grief affects the body, but it was just within this last year where I started doing research on how the grieving process affects the brain. And this is where it's very, very significant, um, because we don't expect this. So, first of all, I just want to say, and as we speak with others about coping through grief, how to handle grief, many of us are mentors and counselors when it comes to grieving. Oftentimes people look to us, you know, how do you grieve? Well, it's not the same for everybody. I can tell you what I can do or what I did today, but what I might do tomorrow, it might not be the same process, right? Um, but I want us to, and this is what I'd like you all to help me with as we speak with everyone, because grief is a universal emotion. Everyone at some point will go through it or will face grief. So I want us to get into the habit of normalizing grief. Grief is not a condition, it is a state of being. And it's not as if we walk around wearing a badge of grief on our shoulders, or it's not as if we are asking to be martyrs of grief, right? The grief brigade. No. But as we all go through our own process, there are things that we know we can share with others. But as I am getting ready to share with you, this is a process that the state of being in that grieving state of being, as far as our brains are concerned, it is a permanent state. We can alter it, we have that choice, but I'm going to talk to you now about why it's a permanent state. So let's get into it a little bit more. Grief is that emotional state that just knocks you off your feet and comes over you like a wave. Today is a great day. I'm anticipating tomorrow being a great day as well. But there's some things that our senses remember, and our senses place footprints on our neural transmitters in our brain. So when I talk about our senses, I'm specifically speaking about sight, smell, and taste, especially smell, our sense of smell, which regulates over 70% of our emotions. There are times where we might be out having a great day and we walk into a store, or an individual passes by us in the supermarket and they're wearing the same cologne, or they smell like our loved one who has transitioned. There have been times where I have been in an airport specifically, and a man has walked by me and has smelled like my father, the cologne that my dad used to wear. And that has triggered me in the airport, right? So that is because our sense of smell, our sense of taste, literally are imprinted in the neural transmitters of our brain. So when we smell something that reminds us or is familiar, right, it affects the limbic part of our brain, which regulates our emotions, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our hormones. And oftentimes it triggers that hormone that we don't speak enough about, which is the cortisol hormone. Cortisol and adrenaline, which automatically places our body in a state of fight or flight. You've heard that phrase before. What happens when I get that phone call, or when that phone call comes? In my case, at 9 o'clock in the morning on July 8th, I knew before I answered the phone because my body was rigid. Nobody calls me from the East Coast, me living on the West Coast. No one, everyone knows not to call me before 11 a.m. So when I received that call that morning, I knew something was amiss. I knew something was amiss. And when I answered the phone and Miss Van said, "He's not answering," I knew who she was speaking of when she said, "He's not answering." So my body was immediately, the cortisol was running through it, the adrenaline. We'll speak about that a little bit more. You never know when the wave is going to hit. And one of the things that I share with people who are new to this grief thing is that one thing that you can do, especially if you're in public, or in your vehicle, it's happened to me driving before, is that you want to breathe. You know, and I know it's not easy sometimes because you might be overcome with emotion. It might be difficult for you to breathe. But that's why I always say, clutch your heart, because when you hold your heart, the act of you holding your heart is automatically calming that cortisol, calming that adrenaline in your body. You're touching yourself and letting yourself know, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm meant to still be here. So let me breathe. Let me try to breathe. And at first, the breath may be coming out through tears and hacks and shortness and chokes, and you just can't get it. But eventually you will. Eventually you will. So one of the easiest things that you can do is to first breathe. First breathe. Now, again, I mentioned transitional loss. So transitional loss is basically uh, a state of grief that we can prepare for. We may not know exactly when that's coming, but it's usually a loved one who is um, elderly or someone who has been in hospice. Maybe we have been a caregiver of a loved one. This grief thing, loss of a loved one, is ageless. It's genderless. It can hit anyone in our family. It can even be a traumatic or transitional loss of a pet. Um, but the transitional loss versus the traumatic loss. The traumatic loss is the loss of a beloved that we have no control of, and we don't see it coming. We don't see it coming. So the stages of grief, one of the things that is really prevalent, I realized when I needed help when facing first the loss of my nana. I was still in the process of gathering her estate, and then with the traumatic loss of my daddy, now my partner, right, who was going to help me through this process, we were going to help each other, is no longer here. So I needed help. I sought at first a grief counselor, one-on-one, and we just weren't compatible because I needed more of a holistic approach. I think I needed someone that I connected with from my heart center. And I just felt like this individual was just, you know, talking about, oh, well, there are 5 stages of grief, and, you're experiencing, oh, yeah, okay, thank you. um, there are stages of grief, and there are specific stages of grief, and they reflect common reactions that we all have as we try to make sense of a loss. But here's the thing about these stages of grief. They have them numbered 1 through 5 or 1 through 7, but they may not come in that 1 through 5 order, right? You might experience 2 or 3 or 4 of them at the same time. So we can define, yes, we can define different stages that people may experience, but everyone's process is different. Everyone's process is different. And to be honest, it didn't work one-on-one with the experienced grief counselor, but I found support and comfort in a small grief support setting of women. There's something to be said when we as women, and this is not to exclude men by any means, but there's something to be said that when we as women come together and form a circle, magic happens. So many of us from all different walks of life were grieving the loss of someone. And when we came together, we were able to heal each other through our stages of grief. So I want to share a little bit about what you might so you might see as listed as the 5 stages of grief. Again, everyone is different. You may experience 2 or 3 stages at once. If it's a traumatic loss, all 5 can come down at you at the same time. So usually one stage is denial, numbness, and shock. Numbness is a normal reaction to a death or loss and should never be confused with not caring. Bargaining. This stage of grief may be marked by persistent thoughts about what could have been done to prevent the death or loss. Depression. In this stage, we begin to realize and feel the true extent of the death or loss. Anger. This stage is common. It usually happens when we feel helpless and powerless. Anger can stem from a feeling of abandonment because of a death or loss. Acceptance. In time, we can come to terms with all of these emotions and feelings that we experienced when the death or loss happened. But I tell you, I prefer to use the word acknowledgement for me, because I'm not always in a frame of mind where I want to accept that these two people who were foundations for me are no longer with me. I can understand it. Maybe I don't choose to accept it, but I can acknowledge it. And so that's that with respect to the stages. So the foggy brain is when I started to study and actually work with other psychologists and holistic therapists, um, 30, 40, 50-year grief counselors. This is where I really learned a lot about how to manage grief. So, all right, so we feel in the clouds here, we feel the anger, the anxiety. Sometimes we lash out and attack those close to us. Sometimes we feel really sensitive and vulnerable to others' emotions, and maybe we might feel as if we are being attacked. Usually in this forgetful, spacey, and unable to express our thoughts state of being, there is a cognitive disconnect. There's an indecisive disorder to things. So not only are we depressed, distracted, and distraught, but we are also absent-minded. These changes are temporary for most people. The brain is supremely resilient and able to rebalance itself over time, even after very painful experiences. But to be honest, the absent-mindedness in the brain fog, 6 years out, I'm still experiencing that. And what I've come to understand about me is that I have to have an abundance of forgiveness. You must forgive yourself for what you're about to forget. Because there's some day, I come from a lineage of great minds and great memory. And sometimes I feel like, I'm I'm the baby of the bunch and I just can't remember, CRS, as my nana would say, can't remember, right? I have those days. And so I'd like you, if you would like to share, come off of mute for a minute and share if you've ever experienced this absent-minded brain fog. And if so, what do you do to help yourself to get through the foggy brain? If you'd like to share, you don't have to, but if you'd like to.
So I will share, Monica. For myself, I had to learn how to allow myself the time to be foggy. Um, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't try to control it. I just allow myself that time, and I make sure that other people know that I need that time. I think that's very important.
Thank you. It's so important to the part about especially letting other people in your circle, in your household, in your family, basically in your tribe, letting other people know, hey, my mind isn't where it is today. I'm putting, look, I'm putting you on, I'm letting you all know that we might have a wonderful conversation this afternoon at 2 p.m. and this evening at 7. I may totally forget what you've said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Um, so forgive yourself for what you're about to forget and let others know that today is one of those foggy brain days. And usually, most people, they understand. And look, those who don't, they don't need to be in your aura anyway, right? Okay, so I want to speak specifically as you grieve. This is where we're getting into the scientific stuff, right? So as you grieve, your brain redraws its neural map. So what does that mean? Our most important bonds are permanently and deeply encoded in the brain, which develops the implicit knowledge that certain people are special to us and will always be with us. So this specifically is speaking of parents and children. Our parents and our children, our brains encode that our parents and our children will always be with us. So when something happens and those people are no longer with us, our brain has to reorganize, rewire, reorder. So the specific regions that are affected by grief are the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking center of the brain. When we face a transitional loss or traumatic loss, the prefrontal cortex becomes underactive. The anterior cingulate cortex, which is the emotional regulation center of the brain, that becomes underactive. And then the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, this is where the cortisol and the adrenaline of it all happens. It becomes overactive. So if we have two critical areas of our brain that are underactive, one critical area of our brain that is overactive, you can see that there's an imbalance there. It's a natural imbalance that happens. With the amygdala being overactive, that sends a signal to our brain that we are in a state of fight or flight. And it locks our bodies into that state of fear. Okay. To be specific or personal again, after I received that call on July 9th at 9 a.m., let's fast forward a year. Whenever I would receive a call in the morning, my body would immediately tense up and go into that fight or flight mode. I'm going to be speaking specifically and sharing how being in that state, literally of being, affects our health. That's the only way to put it. Okay. In trying to make sense of the absence, your brain struggles to reconcile two opposing pieces of knowledge: the conscious knowledge that your loved one is gone, and the powerful implicit knowledge that they are everlasting. This struggle explains some of the more bewildering and crazy making aspects of grieving. For example, You can't seem to absorb the news that they are gone. How can they be gone? They're supposed to still be here. You may feel, see, or hear your loved one because your brain is still holding on to their imprint, right? They're here, they're now, they're close. As I spoke earlier, being in the airport, stranger walking past me and me smelling my dad's cologne. There are times again when I'm out or if I'm speaking publicly and someone from the audience asks a question and that voice coming from the audience sounds like my Nana's voice, right? So your brain is still holding on to their presence and interprets common sensations, sights, and sounds as signs of their presence. You may feel disoriented and wonder if you'll wake up from this bad dream because surely they're still supposed to be here and we will be reunited because they're still supposed to be here. So each time we confront these two opposing pieces of knowledge, it triggers painful grief sensations and the yearning starts all over again. All over again. Apologize for. Okay, there we go. So, complicated grief. So, I'd like to share with you now if you ever experience these symptoms of complicated grief or you know someone does, please, they're signs of red flags of a chronic depression that's getting ready to engulf you. And I would please ask you to seek support. So, complicated grief, some of those symptoms: extreme focus on the loss and reminders of the loved one, intense longing or pining for the deceased, problems accepting the death, numbness or detachment, preoccupation with sorrow, bitterness, and most importantly, your inability to enjoy life. Now, all of these are normal as we go through the grieving process, but if we're feeling them all as if we're being gut punched, gut punched every day, please seek support. I remember the numbness or detachment for me lasted a while. I didn't want to extend myself to anyone because of a fear of losing them and feeling what I was feeling all over again. One of the things that I found that was most helpful to me during this process, and again, we're talking about the foggy brain, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything. Of course, because I was grieving two people at once, many people, family, friends, many people, strangers, the outpouring of support was just was my life support. Probably 3 to 6 months after the passing of my nana and my daddy, I started to get invites to go, hey, meet me for coffee. Hey, let's do wine. Hey, meet me for a meal. Or would you like me to come over? I cooked, I have food. I'd love to bring you some, that kind of thing. I found that really for about a good year, I shared this with people in my circle. I just could not commit to anything. So for a good year, I'm so grateful for the food that you made. I'm so grateful for the invite for the invite. I thought I turned that down. To have wine, but you know, I just can't do it. And then I learned that there might be times early on where I wanted to accept because I really wanted to get out and be with people who cared about me. And let's say the invite was for like a Friday evening, and that Thursday night, or even that Friday morning when I woke up, I knew I wouldn't be able to go through with it. I didn't want to leave my house. So instead of me always breaking plans and at the last minute or saying no to people who loved me and cared for me, I just said, look, y'all, it's going to be about a year before I feel like doing anything. And I can't commit to anything, nothing. I'm committing to uh, with God's glory, with God's grace, waking up. That's it. That's it. Grief literally can make you sick. People who are grieving often report feeling tension in their chest, muscles, and throat, as well as joint pain, shortness of breath, exhaustion, nausea, muscle weakness, dry mouth, and clumsiness. That first year, the first year, I broke my toe and I twisted an ankle. So the clumsiness was real and it was a struggle. Um, and I pride myself on being a graceful person. But and to break my toe, like how did that happen? Who does that? But it was all a part of learning how to forgive myself and give yourself grace. You have to give yourself grace on a daily basis. It's so important to realize what your shortcomings might be, what your pitfalls might be, and just to kind of lean into them. One thing, two things that I want to share with you is especially with the dry mouth and the tightness in the chest, it's so important to drink a lot of water to stay hydrated. And on a daily basis, we should actually be drinking half of our body weight in ounces of water every day. So to keep that hydration going, that helps to keep your blood circulating. It helps to keep your lungs oxidized. It helps to keep your brain hydrated to kind of keep that brain fog at abatement. And then here's an ancient secret. This one lemon. So one area of expertise that I have is traditional Chinese medicine. And we know that all of our organs coincide to different emotions that we experience. So our liver is the organ that holds anger and resentment. I know I was super duper angry for for about a year and a half. Not because of, not necessarily because of, I was angry that my daddy died. I wasn't angry that Nana passed. But then in dealing with all the mess, the legal mess and everything, I was angry for a good year and a half. So one thing that I know for sure, and this is what I practice every day, is to, even before I get out of bed, is to sip on lemon water. Lemon will not only help to establish an alkaline pH in your body, which is what we want to achieve for optimal health, but it's also a source of vitamin C, magnesium, selenium, a lot of those minerals that we don't normally get in the foods that we're eating or consuming when we are grieving. Because when we are grieving, there is no such thing as eating well necessarily. Maybe we might be eating for comfort, or we might not be eating at all, right? So one thing that I know that we can do is that we can sip on lemon water every morning. That helps to keep the liver detoxed. The liver is like the garbage disposal in our bodies. If I'm thinking of an analogy or symbol, where we have the buildup of vegetables and so forth in our garbage disposals in our sink. When we flip that switch, that clears all of that out. So with respect to this lemon, clearing all of that muck out so that our blood can circulate properly to all of the rest of our organs, into our brain. It's essential that we keep our liver clear, and help to also clear out those emotions of anger and resentment. One thing that I know for sure is that some of the other symptoms of grieving, you might experience headaches all of a sudden, again, the dry mouth. If you are experiencing shortness of breath or chest pain, call 911, because it's people will say, "Oh, you might have panic attacks." Okay, so that's the chest pain and the shortness of breath. It might be a panic attack, but it may also be a heart attack. So whatever you're feeling, and you know your body, if you're feeling that shortness of breath combined with the chest pain, you want to call 911 immediately, because we have all heard, even those of us before we even experienced profound grief and loss, knew that there were couples who had been married for years or had been together for years as partners, as life partners, and one transitions and the other within 2 or 3 months transitions right away, right after. The one thing I knew is that my dad, as the only son and only child of my Nana, when she transitioned, he being her caregiver at that point for about 2 or 3 years, he not being ill himself, he was just so overcome with losing her that my daddy died from a broken heart. That is called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. There's a name for it. Yes, you can die from a broken heart. I know that within the first 3 months after losing my dad, again, me being the only child and daughter of my father, um, after 3 months after losing him, my heart attacked me. And that's how I prefer to phrase it. Not that I had a heart attack, that I suffered a heart attack, but my heart attacked me because of the grief. So I can speak on this part personally. When you are feeling that shortness of breath uh, and that chest pain, do not lay down, call 911. You also might experience the nausea and the stomach pain. When you look at this diagram, you see the central line between the brain, the heart, and the gut. That's because those are our three hearts. Yes, we have the heart, the organ of our heart, but our brain and our gut, they're also part of our heart center, and they're in alignment. So even when we're feeling well, when one is out of whack, you notice that, it like if your gut is out of whack for whatever reason, you're really kind of feeling depleted. You might be feeling listless. You might have that foggy brain. You're kind of out of it. So really, if those three are not in alignment, you are not aligned. right? So the brain fog, let's talk about the brain fog of grief is very real. So please remember some of these things. These are coping mechanisms of how to get through the brain fog. Remind yourself that you are normal. So what you are experiencing is normal. I find that we beat ourselves up too much. It's like we might get angry with, you know, like, why am I getting angry with myself because I forgot someone's birthday? They're not angry with me. So why am I getting angry with myself? And why am I putting myself down because of that? Yes, I forgot it this year, but I won't forget it next year, right? Lower your expectations of yourself. As I mentioned, I'm fully functioning now on a daily basis, 6 years out though. But I remember 6 weeks out, it was debatable whether or not I wanted to get out of bed. There were days where I would work from what I called corporate bed quarters, right? So lower your own expectations of you. Take some of that weight off, some of that burden off. Breathe a little. Give yourself extra time to get things done. This is so important. Not only giving yourself extra time to get things done, but also giving yourself extra time to get to certain places. So, for example, getting things done. So, I own a beauty company, and I hand make everything. So, during this whole 2017, 2019, Macy's called and said, "We want you." All right. So now I'm like in another stage of adrenaline, cortisol, out of control, right? Um, so when do you want my products in Macy's? And at that point, one of the beautiful things that has happened during this whole process is that I'm very clear now about um, placing boundaries for my protection. And I'm very clear about communicating my boundaries to other people. So, whoa, having my product line, having my collection in Macy's, dream come true. But I needed Macy's to work with me. So instead of that 30-day deadline, I needed 90 days, Macy's. Okay. Can you please work with me at this time? And I need to tell you why I need you to work with me. And they did. I was grateful for that. But you must be clear about your boundaries. Make lists for everything. I make lists for everything now, post-its and stuff all over, right? Because inevitably I might forget. So giving myself extra time to get things done, but also giving myself extra time to get places because prior to 2017, yeah, I might be able to hop into my car and know how to get there to a certain place, certain restaurant, certain business establishment without even thinking twice. Now, sometimes I have to think because I get halfway there and I forget where I'm going. Even now. Establish a consistent wake up routine. Now, this is when you start to make a decision that you want to get through things, to start to feel things a little more, start to kind of place both of your feet on the floor. It's really important, and it's the same morning routine, wake up routine that I started 6 years ago that I keep today. So I always have my lemon water by my bed. As soon as I wake up, I thank God for allowing me to wake up, and I start drinking my lemon water. And then I think of 3 things to be grateful for even before my day starts. And then after that little routine, I might do some deep breathing, I don't know, but I know that I do get out of bed both feet firmly on the floor, and I start my workout. And that can be anything. Daily exercise, body movement is critical to move that cortisol through your system. Let me talk about cortisol for a minute. You know, that cortisol rush, that adrenaline, it's great for a lot of things, but it's not great to maintain a healthy weight, because if you don't move that cortisol hormone through your body, it stays stuck to your middle. So then that can cause a whole bunch of other health issues, diabetes type 2, because your insulin levels then go out of your whack, your hormone levels are out of whack. That 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 tire, that grief gut that sometimes happens because of cortisol. That's not good. So you want to move your body every day. I don't care what it is. You might just be walking up and down your stairs. You might take a walk in your yard around your neighborhood. You might actually physically get out and feel like going now into an exercise class and being around people and working out with people. You might want something more solitary, maybe a private yoga session or a small yoga class, yoga practice. Um, and you might find support from YouTube University. There are all kinds of workouts on YouTube University. And so if you're still not ready to leave your home or interact with other people, that's fine. But the objective here, the goal here, is to move your body every day. Journaling helps me. Daily prayer and meditation helps me. And then I do one thing that brings me joy every day, whatever that is. It changes every day. So redrawing the neural map for many months, even though you know your relationship has changed, your brain's neural map may lag behind. Your brain favors the implicit knowledge that the partner or loved one is everlasting and won't update the map just because they haven't been around for a day or even several months. It requires ample time and a ton of lived, living experience to absorb the absence, update the predictions, and complete this enormous redrawing process. I also wanted to mention again that we process 70% of our emotions through our sense of smell. So the olfactory connection to mood and to joy, literally, if we smell fragrances, when we smell fragrances, they can trigger something wonderful in the limbic part of our brains, which immediately sends a direct message to the amygdala. So now we're helping out that amygdala. We are helping to kind of soothe that cortisol and that adrenaline. And what I'd like to offer you all today as guests of mine, April is National Aromatherapy Month, and I'd like to offer you 20% off of all of the fragrances in my collection. And I will be reaching out to you after um, our our shared experience here with that information. But fragrance is one of the things that I did was my Black Orchid perfume is literally named in honor of my Nana. So she loved peony, she loved jasmine, she loved lily of the valley, she loved vanilla. That's all in here. And then it's interesting because I was able to take that fragrance, that pie cologne that my dad wore all the time, and kind of come up with something that I call Egyptian goddess, but it has the musk, the amber, the vanilla. And when I inhale this, it brings joyful memories of my father. So there's something to be said for fragrance. You might start wanting to bring in fresh flowers in your home, or burn certain candles, incense, fragrances, things that make you feel good when you smell them. So fragrance is very, very important. So ways to practice self-compassion. Um, Always affirm yourself on a daily basis. You know, I forgot about that. That's part of my wake up routine. Wake up. I am beautiful. I am smart. I am abundant. I am kind. I am whatever you are after I am is who you are. You have affirmed yourself. You have stated and defined yourself behind that I am, and no one can take that away from you. No one now can come and define you. You have already defined yourself, right? The other thing is breathe. We started with the breath work. That box breath is really, really good because it helps you reach a goal. It's one thing to inhale and exhale. It's a whole nother thing to hold it, right? You hold that breath on that plateau. That's a goal that you reach. And if you can start out with maybe 3 seconds and eventually build up to 6 or 7, that's amazing. Drink your warm lemon water. We talked about drinking the lemon water. Uh, do whatever you must do during your day to water your roots so your soul can blossom. Break up with stress, kind of start to distract or pull yourself away from, disconnect from things or people that stress you. Detox from toxic people. Heal your heart through art. That's so important to express your creativity through art. And then rest, restore, and renew. Rest, restore, and renew. It's so important to sleep when you're grieving. And there are no too many hours that are too many hours. You might sleep sometimes 10 or 12 hours at a time. That's never too much. I'd like to answer any questions that you might have for a few minutes, and we're almost at the end. But if you have any questions, please unmute.
I'm currently doing some self-care with my daughter. She is getting me beautiful. So, but I think all of the points that you hit were very important. I think self-care is very important to get through it. We have to learn what we need to make it through. I know that you talked about, how long it has taken you. It took me about 3 years to stop being angry. So I think the self-care, learning about that, setting your boundaries, and being able to tell people what you need is very important.
It really is. And the whole of, when we're in the state of being angry, at least for me, let me get out of the we and speak about me. When I was
Mhm.
angry, I didn't want to take care of myself. There was a part of me that
Right.
felt that I didn't deserve to take care of myself because I was so angry.
Right.
And I had to get over that because for whatever reason, God deemed I was spared. So there's a purpose, placed on my life and on my path. So I better care for myself because if I don't, who will? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And can you share a little bit about how important art is when we're talking about
Oh.
healing our heart?
Oh my goodness. Art, the creative process probably kept me alive for 3 straight years when I could not hold on to anything. Just creating kept me alive. Um, I don't know what it was. It just, I would delve into it, and I would find a safe place, a healing place, and it still is healing for me. And I teach others, you know, how to delve into it and utilize it as a healing tool.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, healing grief through holistic therapies. You know, sometimes a traditional physician might want to give you a drug or prescribe something to help you sleep or to help you to numb yourself. What you don't want to do is further numb yourself. The healing part of the healing is feeling. So, as I journeyed through my grief healing, these are some of the things that I did to help me, and they may help you. So, yeah, I was grateful for each day. Like after that first 6 weeks, I was like, I'm still here. What's the game plan, God? Let's get to it, right? And that's not how that may not be how I awakened every morning, but my goal was to have more of those mornings of gratitude than attitude. So flex your spiritual muscle with body movement. Again, it's so important to move your body. I started taking art classes, and I started investing in artists who have meaning to my soul, one of whom is Ida, who's with us this afternoon. Um, and so, yeah, I'm still painting. Art is so important. Um, oh, another thing that's really popular now to quote unquote de stress adults or the anxiety, to heal anxiety or transition through anxiety, are these coloring books that are now created for adults with these beautiful pages of drawings and so forth. And then we just color them in. Whatever you need to do to express yourself, beat some clay, get some clay and beat it, you know. But that feeling that you are producing something when sometimes you feel so empty inside is so important. Um, Music, sound healing, sound, getting back to the senses. Sound recalibrates our brain and how we process our thoughts. Scientifically proven, but we all know that, right? Because we feel it. We feel it. Um, my restorative yoga practice was very important. Restorative yoga, I mean yin yoga. So the art of getting into a pose and holding it, and again, bringing that breath into the active hold was important. I had a lot of things racing in my brain. So oftentimes it was difficult for me to focus on something. And the last thing I wanted to do was hold a yoga pose for 1 to 3 minutes. But eventually I forced myself to do that. And that helped to calm my body. That helped to um, clear and recirculate and recalibrate that cortisol hormone in my body. Uh, Halotherapy. We have a wonderful salt room here. Um, halotherapy is an ancient and restorative therapy. Literally, when you sit inside of a salt room, every impurity in your body is being sucked out. So, halotherapy inside of the Himalayan salt room, that was invaluable for me. In fact, I started teaching classes in the salt room. That was invaluable for me. Uh, Getting back to my business and creating new fragrances, and also the collection of self-care essentials for the body and for the hair. It was so important for me to get back to my work, because that was the work of what my Nana had taught me from the age of 4. So my collection, my company is an extension of my Nana. You'll find too that after a while, you start to embody the presence and the grace of those you have lost. I carry myself differently. I conduct myself differently. Like my father was very majestic, very calm, very soothing. I never saw my father raise his voice or get angry, at least not at me. um, so I carry myself differently now, and I'm proud of that carriage. Um, so you'll find yourself, even saying things that your loved one might have said. Um, Even the joy of my cat. I lost Misha first before Nana and then Daddy. Um, the joy of Misha, the memories of her antics and so forth. Uh, you know, Thinking about your a pet that has transitioned. Um, you know, that can bring a softness to your spirit and a joy to your heart. So I would like to invite you all to visit my beauty company online, drmonicasnaturalbeauty.com. And the code that I'm going to create for you is going to be Aroma20. That will give you 20% off of anything in that collection. And please, thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Facebook at Dr. Monica Bickerstaff or at Dr. Monica's Natural Beauty. That's my business page. Please follow me on the gram at Dr. Monica Bickerstaff Riley. Check out my YouTube channel. I have some wonderful fireside chats, one of which is with artist Ida Sperlin, who is with us tonight. So my YouTube channel is Dr. Monica Bickerstaff. You can email me at fountainofyouthguru6969@gmail.com, and always reach out to call me at 702-219-0084. But this time that we have shared together has been invaluable to me. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to spend this time with you this afternoon. And if you want to unmute and say something, I would love for you all to share your experience with this workshop. If you have any more comments or questions, we have about 15 more minutes. So just thank you all for being and sharing today.
I just
Monica,
wanted to say thank you for this teaching. It's very beneficial for me. I'm not in the process of grieving, but it helps me to understand more about it. So thank you for this. I appreciate you. It's very good.
You're welcome, Karen. Thank you so much. And now that I know you're in Las Vegas, we've got to get together for coffee. We've got to, and we will.
I would like that very much. Thank you.
Me too.
Monica, thank you for always sharing your knowledge and providing a platform for others to be able to just share what they've gone through in different aspects of their lives. I truly appreciate today's class.
And I'm truly glad that you were here. You are my sister, and you are one of my favorite people. And it always helps me when your energy is in my space. So, and the next time you're in Vegas, we will make the time.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you, ladies. I know that if there's a survey on Eventbrite, please complete the survey for me. That really helps me. And I've decided that I'm going to do some sort of seminar or workshop every month now, starting in June. And I would be so happy to see you all again. And I just hope you have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I'm always here if you need to reach out, if you need me for anything. Thank you for sharing your information in the chat. And if that's all you need me for today, I will bid you all farewell, and we will see each other soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
lovely day.
Thank you so much.